Now it's time to put the whole thing together. In the story of self, we learn when the person learned to care and why they care. In the story of us, we learn how we as a community care too, and when we learned that. And in the story of now, we are at an urgent risk, and we need to act together as a community on the values that we've established we share in the story of us. And so in this clip, you're going to watch Rosie coach me on my linked narrative. I'm going to tell a story of self, us, and now that's tied together with a thread of values. So what I'd like you to pay attention to is, what questions does Rosie ask that lead us to understand what the values are that tie the story together? What questions does she ask to determine if any of the pieces are missing, and how does she draw details in those missing pieces? And finally, does this ask actually sound coherent, and does it relate to everything else that I've been talking about in the rest of my narrative? Pay attention to the types of questions she asks, but also the pacing of her questions, and how does she wrap the whole thing up? Let's watch. So when I was young, maybe 6 or 7, a bunch of our families from our church would go together to Florida. And there were these 2 younger girls, they're maybe like 4 years younger than me. Their names were Marina and Marina. And every day I would take them out into the beach and I'd just start like spelling out words in the sand. And I'd be like, Marina, what does this word say? Marina, what does this word say? And I felt such a joy from seeing younger girls look at me as someone who's a role model and someone who's teaching them something. And that's the earliest I can remember really wanting to be a teacher. And it was a week before me having that dream come true. I was about to go to teacher's college, that I was driving down the street and all of a sudden blackness. And I wake up and I'm in the back of an ambulance. I feel hot blood dripping down my face. And I just hear my dad screaming outside the ambulance, "She's my daughter, let me in." And I black out again. The next thing I remember, I'm being wheeled down the corridor of a hospital, the bright fluorescent lights above me, and this guy named Bailey, who was a paramedic, he had curly brown hair, and he said, "Sarah, I'm Bailey, you're gonna be okay." To this day, I don't know if he was an angel or an actual paramedic, but he really gave me some courage in that moment. Next thing, I black out, wake up, and there's the 4 faces of my family. My dad cracking jokes, my brother cracking jokes, my sister wiping the blood off my face, and my mom holding my hand. And it's because of them that I got through that night, and I made it. And a couple days later, I'm sitting on the bed with my sister, and I have a choice to make. Am I going to go to teacher's college, or am I going to succumb to the fear that I had from that experience and stay at home? And she starts asking me questions like, well, why do you even want to go to teacher's college? Why do you want to become a teacher? Asking me questions that I knew in my heart I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to go no matter how hard it was. And she got the keys, she popped us in a car, and she drove me 2 hours away to university, and I started my teacher's college degree. And if it weren't for her sitting beside me on that bed, that never would have happened. And all of us understand the value of asking questions to get through tough situations. And I think about my students back home who don't have someone like my sister to sit with them, someone like you to sit with them and ask questions to help them come to their own conclusions. And what I would really like us to do is to come together. We're amazing, talented people, and my students need amazing, talented people to ask them questions to make sure that they're living into their true purpose versus being pushed into directions that they may not necessarily want to go into. And so what I'm asking you all to do is to commit with me, to join me with one student that you will commit to mentoring for the rest of this year, to ask them the questions the same way my sister asked me, so that we can make the future a little bit brighter for one student at a time. Will you join me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Let's give Sarah some snaps.
3 seconds to go.
Yeah. Can you put some time on the clock for coaching? Okay. Sarah had some really clear, vivid imagery in her story. What images stuck out to you too?
The hot blood coming down her face in the hospital and writing in the sand when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sitting on the bed with her sister who was asking her questions when she needed those.
Yeah. Those vivid details help bring us into those story moments with you. So keep those in your story. Sarah has a specific value or values that she's lifting up here. What are those values?
So getting support from other people.
Education, too.
Mm-hmm. Support and education, support specifically through questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the story of self, how do we learn why Sarah cares about asking questions, supporting others through questions?
one reason is that, when she was at a kind of turning point in her life, her sister asked her some questions that helped her recognize what she really wanted.
Yeah. So we know clearly why Sarah cares about this. In the story of us, though, we don't really know why how Sarah knows that we care. So Sarah, how do you know that we care?
Well, I mean, we all coach our students, we coach each other.
When have you seen that?
I can remember one night we were sitting on the bench by the Charles River, and Jeff was asking me a bunch of questions to help me figure out a boy that I like, and it was really helpful. So that's an example of coaching to help me come to my own conclusions.
Yeah, and why does the fact that we can do that for each other, why does that make you hopeful?
Because that means that people are actually acting out of their own agency and not somebody else's decisions for them.
Yeah, so that's helpful. Does that help us understand why Sarah knows that we care about asking questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in your now, what is Sarah asking us to do?
To mentor one of her students in Toronto.
Yeah, so a very clear ask, and you asked us right here to raise our hands. Sarah, I'm wondering why this mentoring program is so urgent right now.
There are a lot of students of mine who can go one direction or another, and it's
Which students?
So for example, I have some students in my theater class,
Like who?
I have a student named Christian who is being really heavily pushed by his parents to go into business, but he really wants to become an actor, and he doesn't have people in his life who are helping him come to his own conclusions versus just being pushed in one certain way.
Why does he need that mentorship right now? Is there a big decision coming up?
Yeah, they're applying for college literally within the next month.
So this is really urgent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and how would a mentor help him?
Make a decision. Are you going to go to college and learn how to become an actor? Are you going to just start acting? What choice do you want to make so you're not being pushed into a specific path that your parents are forcing you to go into?
So hearing about Christian really helps us understand why this is specific and why this is really urgent right now. Does that help you understand how you can help?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And does it make you more likely to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what are your next steps in working on your story?
Well, it was really helpful to hear that, to actually paint a moment of how we coached each other. So the story of us, and then also tell a specific story about one of my students to help build the urgency in the now.
That's great. Good job.
Thank you.